Well, welcome back to another fun episode of Translate This. Lauren, how you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing good today. I'm excited for our guest that Melissa graciously sought after.
Yes, this
So
is going to be
let's
a fun
hear
one, people.
about him.
Yes, so, we're going to do a little introduction at the beginning here. So, this is Translate This. We are a podcast about language, culture, life, and the hilarity of it all. And you know what? The hilarity of it will be the theme of today's episode.
I
Because
think so too.
this person is crazy funny. I've just had the best time getting to know this person, and I think our audience is going to really, really enjoy. And so, to make sure that they don't miss it at all, I just want to make sure that they can always go back and listen once again. We have, of course, our webpage of Translate This podcast.com, and we're on Facebook at Translate This Podcast, and we are on Instagram also at Translate This _ podcast. So there's all sorts of ways to listen and rejoice and enjoy once again everything that we've recorded. So without further delay, I actually am going to have him introduce himself in terms of, well, no, maybe I'm just going to go about it. I'm going to go ahead and let you know how I met this person. And then
That's
I'm going to go ahead because this is the best thing. So today's guest is a fellow language services professional who I met at the Association of Language Companies event in Portland, Oregon. And we bonded over what one normally does, karaoke. So that's how we met. And it kind of just went from there. And then we started discovering the fact that we were both expats, different countries in Europe, and that we both, now I understand, we both also not just understand language services, but we both are educators or former educators. We also like to do different things with language, and we are exploring storytelling, and we are exploring all sorts of media options with our native languages, and then experience what it's like to live in another country and endure the wonderful aspects of being an expat and the challenges that all of that brings. So without further ado, go ahead and introduce yourself, wonderful guest.
Hi, my name's Jake. It's great to be talking with you again. If I'd known hilarity was the theme of the podcast, I would have worked on my, setups and punchlines and Rodney Dangerfield impression and everything. Yeah, it's great to be back. Melissa, were you? I'd be embarrassed if I were confusing you with someone else. Were you the one who came up to me at ALC and told me how to network?
Yeah, that
Okay,
was
yeah,
me.
that was that was terrific, and I've referenced that since then because a colleague of mine actually was at a networking event in Hamburg,
Mhm.
Germany. She's a linguist at heart by nature. Prefers to sit at the desk and get her work and focus on grammar and punctuation and everything. And networking
Mhm.
is not really her thing. And so she asked me, "What are the tips? What's the advice?" And I said, "I'll tell you exactly what the wonderful Melissa told me at ALC. And you just go up and talk to you. You just go up and introduce yourself. That's all that it is. There's nothing more to it. And they're all expecting it anyways." And that was huge. Those 3 days could have gone one way for me at Portland. And I think it's just sort of from that point, I was on the better track to a better 3 days. And so thank you for that.
Oh, well, you are quite welcome, and that's really actually wonderful to hear that spoken back to me because I had no idea that I had such a good impact, and I love that because that's what I love to do, which is educate people. I love to help coach people. It's sort of my role in my company now as well that I am of a particular age, and everyone else is coming up into the industry. So it's really fun to hear that that works. And honestly, if I was 20 years old, I'd still tell people to do the same thing because
Yeah.
it really is what I believe is probably a big barrier for people in any profession to be able to market themselves or discuss what it is that they want to do. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Somebody's going to say no. Somebody's going to say, "Oh, I don't have time," or "Thank you," or I've had some people just give me some kind of off looks, and then you just walk away and go to somebody else and you figure it's all them. And that's the other thing you got to build. You got to build that resilience of knowing it's them, it's not you, because
It can't be you. It can't
it's not
be
you.
Melissa. It's
It's
not
not
gonna
me.
be Melissa. It's
It's
not a
never me.
Melissa problem. That's a
No,
them problem.
exactly.
100%.
So
That's
it's not a
tip
Jake problem.
tip number 2. It's not your problem. It's them.
Not my problem. Hey, they're lost. Forget it. And
That's
and
it.
and I don't know if you had seen. I thought you may have seen what I had just done, and that was why you came up and told me that,
Oh.
because I think if my memory isn't, like a sieve here, just like, the puzzle pieces all mixed up in a
Mm-hmm.
box. I think that was like moments after
Okay.
I had made an initial attempt to land a conversation where
Mhm.
like I saw 3 people in a group over there. I had sort of tuned into what they were talking about. I had my drink, and I'm
Yeah.
like winding up and I'm preparing my line that's going to get me in, and I walk up to them and just glide past them and
Yeah.
walk with my head down back into the room where, like, with the tables and the bags and everything. I'm looking through my bag, and then you came up and told me that, and I thought, oh, I wonder if she just saw that miserable crash landing.
No, that's
Um,
so funny. No, it's just
yeah,
serendipitous. I just kind of do my thing. Well, also remember for the ALC, as we call it, I'm on the membership committee. So it's my job to help people who have never attended one of our events to do
Yeah.
that, to be able to network. And Lauren, what have I done to you in the past at these events?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you're talking about advice. Melissa just kind of uses me as her little patient zero out there, I feel. And she's like, "Okay, try this. Go out there and talk to that people or those people and try this strategy." And there I go, cuz I started when I was like 16 in the industry. I think my first ALC I attended as, you know, daughter to mom, but I was like 15, I think, in
Yeah.
Miami.
Yeah.
And yeah, I felt the same. Like groups are definitely the hardest, I think, to approach. So that was, I can understand the swerve and regroup. It's difficult. I always go for the person that looks a little lost or a little sad, and I'm like, great, I'm gonna start with you today just to pep myself up and then
oh, good,
make my way onto a group. But
good. And
yeah,
you were in Portland as well, were you?
yes,
I thought so.
yes,
I
I
thought so.
was.
Yeah,
I
yeah. I thought. Yeah.
I don't think we
Yeah.
talked much, but we
Mhm,
did do
mhm,
karaoke. We did do a couple
mhm,
karaoke
mhm.
songs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And
and
I
that
think
was my very first time doing karaoke in my life.
mine too. Mine
Oh my
too.
Really?
It was
gosh, yeah,
terrific. Yeah,
I
I love
know. And
that.
it was
Oh
like
my gosh.
it was the best experience, and I've always been so shy. So
Yeah.
no, that was good. You look like a pro.
Yeah,
Like I
I
thought
would
you had
never
done
have
it
known
many
that.
times. So
Um, yeah, like in a group that big, it's easy
yeah.
to tell yourself no one's paying attention, no one cares,
Yeah.
and if you're trying to insert yourself into a conversation
Mm-hmm.
with 3 people, you have 3 people who can look you in the eyes and are going to remember your face. But like,
Right.
if it's 30 people in a karaoke booth, then you're like, oh, forget, no one's paying attention anyway.
No.
Just
Yeah.
let loose. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that was
Well, we
great.
certainly did. We had
Oh
so
yeah.
many different people singing that had
Yeah.
never, I believe, never performed before, never had tried it. Even Andrea was with us. Michael, Michael, my business partner, Lauren's dad, he'd never done it before. He was out there
Oh my
singing,
gosh.
singing
Yeah.
all sorts of songs
I
with
could
me.
see that too. Like knowing dad, I was like, oh, he is so nervous right now, but he had a good time. He like
That's
you
great.
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to tell. But
No,
I
no,
also wanted to mention, I don't think we introduced Jake with your
no,
name
no.
or your background. So I
Yeah.
think, Melissa, this is a good time. That was a nice little opener.
Yeah,
But we
yeah.
should also let our audience know who is it that we're talking to and having
Yeah,
this
no, and it's
wonderful
such a delight,
conversation.
such a delight, and it's Baskin, correct?
Like the ice cream.
Yes, that's what I
Baskin.
thought.
Yes,
Okay, so
yes.
Jake Baskin is a story marketer from Virginia. He speaks English, studied it, taught it on 2 continents to students ranging from 14 to 60 years old. And after working as a translator and proofreader, Jake combined his love of storytelling with the marketing needs of small businesses and founded Told and Sold, which, by the way, I love that. That's such a clever, clever title. I love it.
Pat myself on the back.
And you
Yeah.
should, you should. It's a story marketing service. He used to box Oh, you used to box. You used to box. Oh my gosh. I have more stories about this in a minute about that. Okay, we're gonna get to that in the future then here. And you are still left-handed. I'm glad to hear that. I'm
That's
glad
good.
your left hand is still functioning.
That has not
Dedication.
changed.
Okay, good. And you've come to terms with both of these facts. And you live in Munich with your wife, and you are proud to call Germany home. I like
Yeah.
that little piece. Now, how long have you been in Germany?
Since July 30th, 2016.
Yeah, so
Wow.
a little
Okay.
bit. Almost
Yeah.
8 years, going on 8 years. Okay. And you've been married for how long?
Married since June 24th of last year.
Oh,
Oh,
congratulations.
congrats.
Yeah, thanks. Following a, I think, 7-year engagement. So
Okay.
that was exciting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Where
yeah, yeah.
like before, so working backwards for the people at home, keeping track of their timeline. Like that was before I moved over. I wanted to just understand where things were between
Right.
us.
Mm,
I was like, okay, I've got a career here. I've got my friends and family. I really am
Yeah.
looking forward to this life in Germany. It doesn't feel like something I would do for my girlfriend. Like that word at that time just was not saying everything that I felt about her. So I was like,
oh,
we'll take our time,
Right.
don't have to get married tomorrow. That's not important. I just want to make sure we both know where this is going. And we knew then and we know now. So that was exciting.
So is she American or German?
She's German.
Okay, that's what I was thinking in my head. So that's great. Now you met her in Germany or you met her in the US, or how did you meet her?
I met her in my hometown in Fairfax County, Virginia. It was April 20th, 2013.
I love the way you know the exact dates.
yeah. Whoa.
Well, because of course in Germany, April 20th is known as Hitler's birthday.
I didn't know
Mm.
that.
In the United States and in Germany now, we're reclaiming the date, and it's known as the date that I met my wife. And so
Oh,
it
yes.
was April 20th, 2013,
I like it.
a Saturday. I was working at a movie theater
Okay.
across from the university. So it was like a student theater, and
Mhm.
so it's where all the students come and hang out, discount tickets, second run films, and everything. She was an au pair, my wife was an au pair in
Ah.
the States at that time. She came
Mm.
in to see a movie, to see Safe Haven, a Nicholas Sparks film,
Mhm.
Saturday at
Nice.
midnight. And I'm not sure how much you know about what small cult movie theaters get up to on Saturdays at midnight. Melissa,
Yeah, I do.
the
I do.
the
Well, oh, what they do?
Rocky Horror Picture
They Rocky
Show.
Horror Picture Show. Yeah.
Yeah,
I grew up
exactly.
with how so Lauren doesn't.
I didn't
Okay,
know that.
so we're gonna diverge for a moment.
Yeah.
So boxing and Rocky Horror Picture Show are connected in my life.
Oh, this is getting cinematic.
Let me explain why. I have a very good friend who's going to be on the podcast later, who was a full boxer, full contact sport person all his life. And then he is also an expat living in London now, more than 10 years, married to a woman from London. And that'll be a story coming up in a few episodes. And
Oh, I can't
he
wait.
was the cage fighter announcer for MMA, yeah,
Mhm.
in England. So, but in high school, he also would do Rocky Horror Picture Show. And he would do the guy in the gold Speedo because he
Yeah.
was, he was that contact guy. He was used to being in a singlet for wrestling and he was used to being in Speedos for the swim team. So he had no problem in Southern California. And he was blonde and tan. So it really
Oh,
worked in
okay.
his favor. And he would just get
Sure.
up in front and be naked basically
Sure.
and got to enjoy that part of the actual
Yeah.
storyline.
I think
Yeah.
that's Tony Rocky Horror. I think that's the character, the creation of Frankenfurter. I only attended once actually
Okay.
at my own movie theater, but I'm sort of conversationally familiar with it. But that was what was going on that night. And so the first thing my wife to be asked me was why all those men over there were dressed up like women. And it was because, at least at our chapter on that night, it was trashy lingerie night. So all the men were dressed in their trashy
Lovely.
lingerie. And so
Lovely.
we just get to talking. And I noticed she has this accent. Where are you from? Germany. And I said, I'm going to impress you with the only sentence that I know in German. And it was the only sentence I knew at that time. And it was Ich habe Alzheimer, which means I have Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna
what I thought it was.
say.
Yep. Yep. There you go. There you go.
Oh my
I'd seen
gosh.
it on a magazine cover at the university once. Stuck with me. That was the only sentence I knew. And I said that, and she just kind of looked at me, and I said, is that right? And what I meant was that correct
Correct.
German?
Yes.
But she interpreted it as, is
Oh
this
my gosh.
true? And
Is
so
this
she
true?
said, I don't know. And I thought, but you speak German. And so I sold her peanut M&Ms, and she went and started watching the movie. She came back and ordered a Pepsi, and then she asked for my phone number, and then
Very
here we go.
nice.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
let's put
that's a
it
cute
this
story.
way. It's a good thing that it's not true, first of all. And secondly, I think it's ironic that you remembered that.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. The one sentence I could remember was about having Alzheimer's, and so of course now 11 years down the road, anytime I forget anything, we say, well, it was prophesied
Yeah,
on that night, April 20th,
exactly.
2013, that it would start happening. Here it is, early onset.
Oh gosh, let's hope not. No. We're not going to go down that road.
No,
Oh my
no.
goodness. That is so funny. So I don't know if you know that Lauren has a Germany connection, which we now speak about as a fond memory, maybe not so bitterly as we
Lay it on
might
me.
have.
Yeah, a little
So,
bit. No, I was married to a guy in Oregon whose mom was from Cologne, and
Mhm.
he's pretty much, German. I mean, American, but spoke German, all of that. You wouldn't know that he wasn't from Germany if he spoke in German. So
mhm.
he was
Nice.
like raised bilingually and culturally, and he'd been in Germany a couple times. So I learned a little bit of broken German as well growing up. But now that's not the case, because now, obviously, that was what, almost 5 years ago that
Yes.
we got divorced, and it was mutual. But
Mhm.
now I'm with my current boyfriend, who's from Guatemala, so now I'm all in the Spanish.
Yeah.
So,
Good,
Totally.
good, good,
Gone the
good.
other
but I still
direction.
when we went to Germany last year and a half ago,
Year and a half ago.
to
Yeah,
Munich,
2022.
and my German stuck with me, because when I was there, I was like, oh, I was kind of one of the ones that was understanding the
Mhm.
most in Germany and
Terrific.
helping the family out and stuff.
Yep.
So
We
That's
really
great.
relied on her for that
it was a little
because,
superpower that came back a
yeah,
lot. So I was
yeah,
happy about that.
That's
yeah.
the funny thing, like about languages you start learning, I think, sort of as a young adult or an adult, the ones you didn't grow up speaking, kind of, but the ones that you start learning later.
Mhm.
It's really a muscle that you have to train, but you can
Yeah,
be surprised when like that muscle springs back into action after years of not using it or something. But then suddenly this well is just sort of opened up in your head. Oh yeah, all
exactly.
this stuff I thought I forgot is actually
Right.
still there.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because I lived in Lyon for a year and a half, and sometimes to practice my French in my head before I go to sleep, I'll just have conversations in French. Because speaking it, and we're going to get into this right now because both of us were language instructors, and Lauren's been, she grew up in a language services company, and she also would TA for both her father and me
Yeah.
whenever we would say, hey, you have a school, you're not in school, come on over and you can TA for our classes today. And so we would keep eyes on her that way too. That was kind of a parenting trick as well.
Yeah.
Her brother,
I was
just,
a little bit of a rebel, so they
yeah,
needed that.
we didn't have to
I
worry.
see it. I see it in your eyes. I see it
Yeah,
in your
yeah. So we had to keep track
It's
of
still
her.
there.
Brother just got a pass. Yeah, but it's good though. I mean, she had she explored the world. So when I go to sleep, I try to do this because speaking it is much more difficult. It's just hard to speak French for me. When I go to Italy, however, even though I've not formally studied Italian, just self-taught, it's just so much easier because it's so similar to Spanish. And about 2 weeks in, when I'm in Italy, I'm completely speaking broken Italian, and it's great. And I keep learning more language every time I go. We were only there this last week for about 4 days, but it was there and people could understand me. And they said, I understand your Italian. So I was like, this is great.
That's terrific.
Now that we're here in Galicia, we have Gallego, right? Or Galician. And it's a Latin-based language that Portugal came from, because this whole region from the top northwest tip of Spain all the way down to the bottom, Portugal, was all one language at one point until it was then broken up again by the kingdoms and the wars and whatnot in the history of Portugal and Spain. But the language here then changed. Portuguese decided to add different words, spell things differently, pronounce it differently. And the Gallegos that are here, they introduced more Castilian words into the language and then did the same thing. So
Mhm.
they're very proud of their language here, but it's confusing for us as Castilian learners because we're incorporating these other languages. So I want to get to that about you, Jake, because one of the things that we wanted to discuss with you is about struggling to learn a language as an adult. And I know I get this all the time. I get this question: how am I going to learn a language? I'm an adult. I'm not a kid anymore, blah, 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 blah. But I do believe people can learn a language as an adult. I strongly, I hold out hope for everybody, but I think there's a different methodology that you have to do. So, in your experience, how were you able to learn German? And then also, have you been teaching English in Germany?
Yes, I was teaching English in English to German adults with Berlitz. Berlitz was the language school
Okay.
I was doing that with. So I was able to teach that, and there the Berlitz approach is all immersion, and
Yep.
as part of the training, when you become a Berlitz teacher and you're learning the Berlitz method, you basically get one or two lessons. In my case, it was in like Swahili at the time, and so
Ah.
you start learning Swahili in Swahili
Mm-hmm.
with just gesture and the basics and some illustrations, and then it's all in Swahili and you're speaking Swahili. And so like, yeah, that immersion learning is still possible as an adult, and I was teaching adults who had already had some exposure to English. Like I don't think in 2 years of teaching English as a foreign language I had anyone who was just really starting from zero.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah. So I was teaching that here in Germany, and in terms of how I went about learning German, it was I'll say the hard way. I made it hard on myself for sure by just not taking classes. That's if
That is a little difficult.
That's me
it
right
is.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like, it's fun and it's advantages and disadvantages.
Right.
And when I talk to other adults, young adults, who are teaching themselves a language, a foreign language, then they always ask what's the easy way, and I say
Mm-hmm.
there is no easy way, there's just hard ways. And so the way I
Yeah.
went about learning German was certainly harder than the other hard way of just like
Mm-hmm.
going to classes and reading through the
Yeah.
book and doing the exercises and everything. That would have been hard in its own right,
Yeah.
but it's also just a lot of fun. And going back to the networking we were talking about at the beginning, like I feel like the qualities that are going to make you a good networker are probably the qualities that are going to allow you to naturally interact with people in a way that's going to let you pick up a language,
Right.
where at some point you just realize, all right, there's no way I can go about this where I'm not going to look like a fool.
Mhm.
So
Right.
embrace the foolishness.
Yeah.
Try to just barrel through all of the misunderstandings and miscommunications and me not saying exactly what I meant and me not understanding exactly what they were saying. Barrel through all that, get to the end, because the end is you're going to know a little bit more about the language than you did before you had this
Mhm.
conversation. And
And
so that
and
was
I'm
it. It was, yeah.
no, I was gonna say, and I'm really, really glad that you are asserting this, because this is I mean, it's parroting everything I've ever told anyone. And I do know that there are other people like me out there in the world, like you, that we understand this concept, and we are constantly fighting the mindset that language learning has to be a prescribed manner, and only at a certain age can you pick up a language. You know, if I were dropped off tomorrow in, I don't know, insert country name here, I would eventually speak the language because I would have no recourse other than to do so because of the immersion process. And we've talked a little bit about the fact that we have a language training center, and historically we've done a lot of English language training through Barbier for students that have come over to the United States that are business people that need to really, get oriented quickly. I think motivation is different. When I taught Spanish in the United States as a second language, right, as a foreign language versus, an immersion second language, and that's the difference, right? I think that's a big difference. When we go through the public system or even the private system in the United States in a K-12 setting, we're taught language as a foreign language, which is more of a review of the language, the rules of it. Most people can really do well with writing it and the grammar of writing it, but they can't speak it at all. They come out of it just sort of an audited course as you would in college. Whereas if you learn a language in second acquisition mode as a second language, you are in an immersion setting, you are absorbing it culturally, and you are fully, completely engaged all senses into this language. That is the approach we take with the Barbier method. So all of our teaching and training, there's an expression out there, where you model yourself after the great ones to become them. So we borrowed a lot from big companies like Berlitz and all of the other language training companies that are out there to create our own methodology that we knew what would work and what we didn't want from the other ones. We didn't want rote memorization. We didn't want, drill and kill, but we did know that those have their place in activities at times, but it shouldn't be the whole pathway. So we do a lot of mimicking and immersion style, full body contact, so to speak, when you're doing things, because it's the way to learn a language. And as a kid, that's how you were taught. You would think about all your parental figures in your life and your teachers, how they would say something to you and they would act it out. And that was really the clue for us when we watched our students be able to really go forward. And then at the higher level of learning a language, that's when you get more into the philosophical aspects of the basics of where does this word come from? Why is this expression this? Why is this expression that? And then I think of it more of the toddler to the maybe up to 7-year-old questions that you have in your brain, but you're asking him as an adult. My son, when he was little, he couldn't get past the expression dead end. He would just look at us. He says, "Why is the end dead?" Like he just didn't click, couldn't get past
He's
that.
not wrong.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Why? Think about it. Why is the end dead? And then when I go to learn French and I learn that it's called cul-de-sac, right? Which is also a dead end at the cul-de-sac, right? The cul-de-sac, it's a ass back. So it's not making any sense either because it's your butt, right? So it's the end again, the butt.
Yeah.
So it's really, really for me, I just sit there and go, who is making these words up? So I think it's more about learning the fun parts of language and understanding concepts. And this is why, if you ask my husband, he learned Spanish. He learned dirty words first because he worked in hospitality before he was in education. And he would go into the kitchen and speak with all of the Spanish speaking cooks, and they would teach him all the bad words. And so he'd come home and say, "Hey, I learned blah, 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 blah." I'm like, "What are you saying?" It's not like, don't say that in front of my mother. It's just, don't ever say that. So it's really bad language.
Yeah, and that's sort of the, I don't know, pros and cons aren't the right words, but they're learning through that kind of immersion and that kind of exposure opens up its own sort of exciting little moments and learning opportunities where as a child, growing up in a household or environment where you're exposed to a language, obviously you're hearing adult language used
Right.
by adults, but when you get into education and you're reading and you start watching series and listening to music and talking with your other friends and stuff, then all that is sort of happening at this age appropriate language level, you know.
Right.
But when you're an adult, you're just kind of thrown into language exposure at wildly different levels and wildly
Yeah.
different contexts.
Yep.
Right.
And so one of the fun things later, especially when you really come to grasp the language, is that other people recognize where and how you learned it,
Mm-hmm.
based on some of the words and phrases your husband would have learned.
Yep.
Yeah, some of that dirty Spanish,
Yep.
uh,
Yep. Yep.
and I know that still with German, after feeling like I've been able to speak it really for a few years
Mm-hmm.
now,
Mm-hmm.
with some kind of conversational fluency, still pulling out words and phrases with other Germans that they don't recognize because they're
Yep.
so unique to like the region that my wife and her family are from, and they
Yep.
have their own dialect and their
Yep.
own
Yep.
idioms and and
Mm-hmm.
and and
Mm-hmm.
their own accent and everything. And so I'll just sort
Yeah.
of throw one out, and it's like it's good German. I know it's German. I've heard Germans use it before,
Right.
and other
Right.
Germans just look at me like, what?
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Was ist
What
that?
area is your wife from?
Lower Saxony, which is up in the north.
Okay.
It's on the northern coast, but it's the Lower Saxony.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah, I can't. I don't know the
completely
history behind
different
it.
than the
Yeah.
south of
In
Germany.
Munich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's from there. There's a town called Papenburg, that's pretty small, and the only people who know it are either from there or they know that there's a big shipyard, and most
Ah.
of the cruise ships on the waters around the world today are built in this shipyard at the Meyerwerk.
Oh, interesting.
So it's pretty small and pretty rural, except for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it has its own just unique, strong tradition of dialect and language and
Yeah.
Right.
and lifestyle and everything. So we were in Hamburg for 6.5 years or so, and then moved down to Munich, just over a year. Yeah,
Well, Hamburg also. I mean, that's a great city,
yeah,
and
it's tons of fun. Yeah.
people love Hamburg. And I mean, there's also really good soccer coming out of that area, so that's also good too.
There
Uh,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be great if I were a fan or had any sense or understanding of team sports, and I'm not, and I don't.
Oh
And
my gosh. Yeah.
it's fun to sort of tune into it and just sort of hear people talking about it and see them get excited, but I just
Yeah.
don't follow.
Oh
That's
no.
a little ironic because the south of the U.S., Virginia, right? It's a big sports area, especially
Sure.
North
Oh, big
Carolina,
time.
the
Yeah.
state next to it. Yeah, it's all
Big
about
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
My dad, my
And
brothers,
You
my mom
swerved.
even.
Yeah, I was gonna say
oh,
you
that's so
swerved
funny.
right out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so there's again more to unpack here. So I think one of the things that I want to go into when we're on this kind of line of speaking about idioms and difficulties in trying to be understood, you have a particular coffee ordering story that we need to share.
Sure.
So again, disclaimer for everyone: this could be a trigger for all of you expats that have been out there and know what it's like to struggle with ordering something.
I have my
I
guesses.
I have my story that I will share after we hear the coffee order. Mine deals with a croissant. So let's go.
Very good. Very good. And it's so appropriate, I think, that and your story might prove me wrong, but that both of these are sort of at the ordering level, because
Yes,
that's
they
really
are.
just one of the first things you learn to do when you're in a
Yeah.
country where you need to speak the language. It's like, okay, how do I order something? And that's where you're going to make the most mistakes.
Yep.
2014, I helped my wife move down to start her apprenticeship at Bosch here in Munich, and so we were there that summer in Munich, and their little projects around the apartment that we're doing. And so I get up one morning, think, okay, before we start our day full of projects, I'm going to go get Brötchen, the great rolls, the breakfast rolls at the bakery, and get
Oh
us a couple
yeah.
of cappuccinos, and this will just be
So
terrific,
good.
and then we'll be
Oh,
fortified to take on these projects. And so I go to the bakery and I order a couple of cappuccinos, 5 cappuccino, bitte.
Mhm.
And the woman just says something to me.
Oh.
Anything at all. It's your guess what she asked. She
Oh
just
no.
says something. And I just look at her and I go, and just kind of, I can tell she's asking me something, no clue what she's asking me.
Hmm.
And I just do this non-committal nod head shake
Yeah.
thing. And she just sort of does it back to me because she can tell that I'm confused. And she just shrugs and turns around and gets the two, little porcelain mugs and puts them under the thing and hits the button. And then I realized, oh, she was asking me, is that for here or to
Or to
go?
go. Yeah.
And so what would anyone with zero self-respect do in this situation? I pay for the cappuccinos, I thank her, and I sit down and I drink them both in about 5 minutes, about weeping into the milk foam, just so ashamed. Of course, it's just the thing they would ask you anywhere at any
Yeah.
coffee shop
Right,
you
right,
go. But
right.
because I'm so in this mindset of I don't speak the language, Jake,
Yeah.
you're not going to have any idea what she's saying.
Yeah.
Context is thrown out the window here.
Right.
You don't speak the language. How could you possibly understand her? And
Right,
so
right,
I
right.
sit down and drink the two cappuccinos, and then I go back and I say, zwei cappuccino in papier, in paper.
Ah, and paper.
And that's something. And she just kind of like rolls her eyes and goes, "Oh my God! Why couldn't this guy have just communicated this?"
Mhm.
And she sees where this misunderstanding has occurred. She gives me the two to go, and I go back and I bring them to Zonia, and I'm just coming home licking my wounds. Like, okay, here are cappuccinos. Here they are. I barely survived. And she said, "What happened?" I told her, and she said, "Jake, you could have just said to go."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Where was this information? The
Yeah.
English
Yeah.
words to go, and it's like my first
Right.
real experience in Europe too. I'd been to
Mhm.
London a couple times before that, but
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
Like
speak
fake
English in
English.
London, or
Yeah.
or some something that passes as English up
Right.
there, and but I'm in Germany, and I just have no idea how much English
They
this
speak.
person at the bakery is going to speak in
Right,
England.
right.
And so again, just coming in with this mindset of like,
Mhm, mhm.
okay, I'm certain I won't understand what they're saying. I'm certain they
Right.
won't understand me because I don't speak the language. But then forgetting that context
Well,
is everything.
That is
so here's the thing.
hilarious.
Here's
I have
the
a
thing.
similar story.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Can't
Well, I was
wait.
gonna say
Can't wait to hear him.
here's the thing that people forget as expats here in Europe. The universal language, even if it's poorly spoken to our American ears, is English. So
Yep.
most people in larger cities are going to speak some level of English to the point of in service industries, at least. Not
Or at
everybody speaks
least,
English here, but
yeah,
they
or at least
do.
understanding.
They at least
Yeah.
understand, like they would understand that. And I would have been right with you, Jake. I would have not thought to say to go.
Yeah.
I might have mimicked to like take it with me or something,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I've done
I'm-
body
yeah,
language, be
yeah.
a mime. But yeah, I mean, that would probably be all I could do at that moment. So Lauren,
That's funny.
go
I have
ahead.
a
'Cause
yeah.
I don't think I know
So
the story.
well, yeah, because it's embarrassing. I don't want to always be like, "Hey, mom, guess how many times I didn't understand today." No. So I'm assuming when you moved to Germany, Jake, you didn't know any German, barely any, right?
That
Okay.
story is representative of how much German I
Okay.
spoke when I
So
moved 2
I'm
years
in
later in 2016.
I'm in the same
Okay.
boat. So when I got divorced, I decided I wanted like an eat, pray, love moment, and so I moved to Guatemala. And at that time too, we were opening up an office there, so I decided, why not? Fuck it. I'm just gonna move to Guatemala,
Yep.
Nice.
start up the office, live there, and see what happens. So
Nice.
I'm also a big coffee lover, and
Guatemala's got good coffee.
and Guatemala
That's
has
what
some
I
of the
hear.
best coffee in the world.
Yep. So good.
So on the way to work, I stopped in, and same thing. I wanted a cappuccino to go. So I asked for a cappuccino, un cappuccino por favor, and they said para aquí or para lavar, and I was
Llevar.
like,
Yep.
I said, I understood a key was here, right? So I was like,
Mhm.
no a key, and I pointed, no a key, and I kept pointing at the door, and they were like para llevar, and I was like, yeah, see. I
Yeah.
was just like, and they were kind of like looking at me like, okay, this lady, and then they're
Yeah.
like typical gringa, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
sorry to be your gringa today. I'll see you tomorrow and give you another original gringa experience, probably.
Yes.
Please,
Um,
it's on us, you poor soul, you
yeah,
poor soul.
exactly. So when I got to work, I asked some of my friends there, I'm like, got a cappuccino, and she kept saying this Lavar, and I'm like, at that time I didn't even have a good accent, and I was like, Para Lavar or something, and they're like, Para
Okay.
llevar, and I was like, yes, yes, yeah, that, and they're like, yeah, that just means to go, and I was like, oh God, okay, here we go. So I kept,
Oh, so that didn't even click for you until you went home. You like it
yeah,
didn't even click what they
No,
were.
no,
no.
no, no, no. I
Oh,
was so
wow.
just like
Yeah.
fogged
Yeah.
in like the
Yeah.
brain of like I sound horrible. I don't know what's going on. Oh my God, like that whole
Yeah.
initial fear of just like
Right.
yeah, and it happened to me in France too when
Oh, yeah.
I went to Lush because they had a Lush like cosmetics there, and I wanted to get some bath bombs.
That was the
And I
age of bath bombs with you. Let me
oh
just
yeah,
digress for a moment. That was a
yeah, that's
moment
true.
where it was just constant bath bombs being purchased and
Yes,
Bath bomb
discussed.
sommelier.
Yes,
yeah.
and you could just smell the house full of bath bombs.
And this is when I was visiting my parents when they were living in Lyon, and so and ironically, this was I don't know 5 years before I moved to Guatemala. Around that 5 or
Yeah.
6 years,
Yeah.
and I studied French with both my mom and dad before they moved. So I was like, okay, cool. I can get the basics. I understand the
Yeah.
basics. This is good. I have no idea how to talk about bath bombs and bath and so I went in there and he just asked me something about the bath bombs and my face just turned white. And he told me because then all of a sudden he switched to English and he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I see the fear in your eyes." And he was from the US and he was like, "Trust me, I get it. I know what you're going
Oh
through." And
my God.
I was like, "Oh my God, you speak English. Okay." And
That's
I was like,
great.
"Well,
That's great.
that's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you." And
Yeah.
he was like, "Don't worry." He was like, "You will get there." And it was like a support, like he
Oh,
just
that's
saw
great.
it. But that's the
Oh,
similar moment,
Yeah.
like when you realize like I want to understand so badly, but I'm a person that I show everything in my face. And so
yeah.
I was just showing like I want to, but I don't know what you're saying. So
And and it sounds like he's been there too, because
oh
to
yeah.
apologize, to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," is like, "Oh, I realize what I just put you through here,"
Right.
which
Yeah.
is like this mortal terror of like,
It is.
am I ever gonna learn
Right.
anything? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
do I even know how to say this in English anymore?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You
And
just
that
go through
happens
that.
too. You get to that point where, and I know Lauren and I talked about this, where you start
Yeah.
like, what is the word in English? I
Right.
forgot the
I
word
did
in
that
English.
today. I did that today. So this morning I was making coffee and I told my boyfriend, I'm like, I need, summer's coming up. And I was like, I am going to be making a lot of iced coffee this summer. I normally have not gotten into the iced coffee world, but I'm like, I need to make like a hada, like, and I was like, gosh, I don't even remember what the word for jug. And I was like, I need
Right.
to make a jug of like a big jug for like the
Right.
refrigerator, but I was just like, hada. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's the first time that the Spanish word came to my mind before the English word.
But
And
that's
Right.
I
actually
was
a good
actually happy. I
thing.
was like,
That's a good
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
for all of our listeners who don't know why that's a good thing, it's not that you actually lose your first language, because you won't. You
Yeah.
you will maybe not speak it as much. You could possibly lose some vocabulary in the maybe some of the more newer idioms and whatnot might not come naturally to you, depending on how long you're out of country. However, it's your native language. So you're going to grasp it and understand it. And yeah, so it might take you a few moments to recall the word, but it's going to come to you. However, when your brain starts doing that and replacing the words with the country that you are in with those native words, that means your brain is now being able to switch to being bilingual. It means you are completely absorbing the language, and it's a progression in language training. It's a progression in learning of language. So it is a very good thing to have that happen. You'll start dreaming in your second or third
Yeah.
language. That's a very good positive sign
I
as
haven't
well.
made it there yet. I
Yeah,
want to.
it'll happen.
You're on your way.
It'll
Yeah. Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. And
I,
and it shows you, I think, what context you use this
right.
second language in. So
Yeah.
Yes.
like
Very much.
I didn't start cooking until I moved to Germany. And so anything with cooking, fresh ingredients, produce, all
Interesting.
that stuff, like a lot of that vocabulary comes to mind first now
Sure.
before the English will, because
Yeah.
that's just like where I did the thing, and the
Yeah.
language I was speaking when I did it. Yeah.
It's experiential. I mean, it really is because it is that. If I were to learn something new, a new hobby, anything here, and if I learned it in Castellano, then yeah, I wouldn't be able to necessarily recall that vocabulary immediately over in English because I didn't learn that. And that's why language trainers will tell you this. Every language, second language acquisition teacher, every foreign language teacher in the last probably 10 years to 20 years knows now that the more you learn in your native language, the bigger your vocabulary, the more educated you are in your native language, the more you have to transfer over into your second, third, fourth language because you've already learned it. So it's just a matter of learning what that vocabulary is in that other language. So it makes it easier to acquire an additional language because you already have such a strong base language. When you learn a language and you have to be able to, do these things to survive in another culture and you're coming over as an immigrant, you have to know that it's going to be harder if you haven't had enough education in your own native language.
Mm,
Or what's happening right now, and I'll get a little political here.
yeah.
What's happening at the southern border of the United States is that they're coming into the country and they are not native Spanish speakers, a lot of them, or it's their second language,
Exactly.
or they're coming from other countries that happen to travel through Spanish speaking countries. And so in Germany, very similar situation. You have people coming into Germany that they've accepted all refugees coming in, immigrants coming in, and there are a lot of people in Germany who speak Turkish, Polish,
Arabic,
Arabic.
Ukrainian now.
Yep, a lot of
Yeah.
Spanish are going there because the economy is stronger in Europe.
Mm,
So when they're there to learn the languages, if they've not had an opportunity to be educated at a secondary level or any type of university level in their native country, it will be a little bit more of that, what you speak of, Jake, where you're learning it for the first time. So they're going to learn it in German and they're not going to learn it. They're not going to know it in their native language necessarily. They might
yeah.
transfer it back, but it's going to be a completely new experience for them. And
Or
yeah.
and words that don't exist in their
Yes.
language
Right.
that exist in
too.
other languages, which is always a fun thing as well.
And German is very
I was gonna
good
talk
at
about
doing. Yes, please do so because
yeah.
there's
No,
something that I'm going to
I
ask Jake about.
can you do
Yeah.
you know? I'm sure you know the word for speeding in German. I mean, I
As in
don't, but
as
I
in
hear that it's
driving too
yeah,
fast.
exactly. Driving. It's like one very long word that literally is like driving too fast.
Um,
And German does it
Way
a
to put him
lot
on the
where
spot, Lauren.
they explain these. Well, I don't even know it, but I just remember hearing and seeing these giant words, and I was like,
yeah,
"What could that possibly mean?" And they're like, "Oh, that just means you're speeding." I was like, "What?"
that's great.
And a lot of it happens in German. I hear that
Concept for
they
going too fast. Yeah. Yeah. I'll take this as a good sign that I've never been pulled over for speeding. For the reason
yeah
why I don't know this. I know this word. The speed generally is Geschwindigkeit, so it might be something like Übergeschwindigkeit. I'm
exactly though.
I'm
But
just making that
that's
up, but it's something hilarious. Yeah, they love their compound
yeah
adjectives, their compound nouns.
Mhm.
The author John Le Carre spoke German very well, lived in Germany, and was giving some speech because he was sort of presenting students at Oxford or something with some German award, and he talked about the great adjectives that you can form in German, or these like adjectival phrases, and it's things like the recently by my mother through the window thrown PlayStation. Where like
that's
that whole
That's a word.
adjectival phrase
Yeah.
could just be one word or one long adjective sort of in German. And so that's always good fun. And it's practical for someone learning it because you can guess at words
Yeah,
that you
that's
haven't heard
true.
before.
good. It's a little
That's a good point.
literal. So when you go and look at the words and I wouldn't know if this is everybody's experience, but as a native English speaker, when I go to Germany, the words make more sense to me because for those of you listening, American English or most English is a combination of French and German, and good strong bases in both. And I read signs and I think, oh, I can figure this out because it's just a very literal expression in German. But I've put into the chat a word that is not literal. I don't know if it's literal, but I want you to explain this word. To Lauren's point, I just learned this one the other day. I was watching, the endless scrolling of Instagram, and it was about this little device. It's a word that describes where you are using a device to open up a hard-boiled egg, the top of it, and be able to eat out of it, like if you make soft-boiled eggs. And can you try to pronounce that for us?
Sure. I'm seeing it for the first time, and I just encountered this device for the first time
Oh, okay.
in December of last year, I think. So I've been here for a while, but just saw it for the first time December of last year. My wife had never seen it before; she didn't know what it is either.
Oh, okay.
But now I'm seeing this word. It's the der. I'm gonna guess the article. It's der Eierschalensollbruchstellenverursacher.
Oh, good job.
Lovely.
Eierschale would be the eggshell.
Okay.
Soll meaning should or intending,
Okay.
Bruchstelle is the location where it breaks.
Okay.
And the Verursacher is the causer. It's the thing that it's the cause of breaking the egg in the place where you should break it.
This is exactly what I was talking about.
It's terrific.
I love it though, and I don't know of many languages that do this. And I mean, there are others, but I just love German for that. It's just it makes sense. It's as it should, and I feel like culturally it kind of aligns.
Oh, completely.
It is. Because I knew a guy who spoke German, Spanish, and English basically as 3 first languages.
Wow.
And so I got to ask him about the uses and functions of the different languages, what comes out in which situation and everything. And he said Spanish is a spicy language, it's emotional and it's great for expressing emotion through intonation and through the rapid fire and everything. And he said German is a language of mechanics and engineers. It's a language where you can just take parts and rearrange them and click them together in new ways to create new ideas, and take 2 words that you have to create a third word for some completely separate thing, and you see that perfectly here in this, this word of 50 letters that contains 10 discrete ideas.
Oh my gosh. And I think to myself, both in German and in Dutch, some of the longest words I've ever seen in my life, and I think poor child with some type of dyslexia having to try to learn how to spell their native language, or coming in as an immigrant with that. So I always think, oh, poor child, just be a sight reader. Just know that that's what it says. Don't even try to spell it. Just know that's how you say that word. And that I think probably would help people that are also learning other languages. Sometimes being a sight reader is better. I, with French, gave up on trying to figure out exactly how things were pronounced. So my experience with ordering was about a croissant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we were in Lyon, and Lyon is the food capital of France. And the Lyonnais, they're very French speaking, but they will speak to you in English if they know how to speak English. So I went to a little Eric Kaiser cafe every day because I love Eric Kaiser Bakery, and I went in there and I would order coffee and croissants and whatnot. But there was these 3 university students that just loved to give me, and Lauren witnessed it. They gave me the hardest time.
Yeah, and never happened with me.
No, and I had
and Melissa spoke better French.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say I had the best accent in everybody.
They picked favorites,
They did. They picked favorites, and I would say, I would like, s'il vous plaît, un croissant, and or je voudrais un croissant. Not horrible, I probably even said it better back in the day when I was immersed
Sounds
in it.
Mhm.
terrific.
Well, thank you. But they would say, quoi? 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 Ca? And quoi is what?
Yeah.
And then it would get to, oh, croissant. And I said, yep. And I just started smiling because I'm like, that's what I just say, you bitch.
Ay, ay. Was it malicious or was it like,
Oh,
oh, here's
no.
our favorite customer. She's
No.
here. We're going to tease her a
No.
little. Oh,
No.
gosh.
Oh
Oh,
Because
no.
because
no.
I would totally have played along if it was my favorite customer and let's have fun with it.
Yeah,
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 And
yeah.
I'm empathetic to language learners. So I was like, you terrible little girls, I'm gonna punish you. If you were my students, oh my gosh, you would get
Where
it.
is your empathy?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have no
Gosh.
empathy. Mean girl time. And
Yeah.
I wanted to somehow run into them where English was necessary and that I'd
Yeah,
look at them
yeah,
and say,
yeah.
"Oh,
Get
what?"
your sweet
Aha.
revenge.
Yeah, my revenge.
Yeah.
But I never got that. But I mean, the nice thing is that Lauren did have those moments in Leon, and we had some very, very wonderful friends that still live there. That they are very, they're very nearly perfectly bilingual English speakers, and they really did help us, and that
Mhm.
was helpful. I think the question I have for you, because you are learning German still, um, and my husband is going through this because I am much more fluent in Spanish than he is. And Lauren's going through this with her boyfriend, who is a native Spanish speaker. Uh, I get tended to, he relies on me when we're in public. And so I believe his Spanish could have been far more advanced by this point. Do you think your German could have been pushed a little further if you didn't have a native German speaking wife to be a safety net for you?
Um, that's a good question. If I'm thinking of my time in Germany following basically the same arc step for step, and then my wife just not being in the picture,
Mhm.
I've in all my professional settings have mainly been speaking English.
Mm.
Teaching at Berlitz, I was
Mhm.
my colleagues were other English speaking expats.
Mhm.
Um, and I was speaking English to the students. They were speaking English with me, and so I wasn't
Yeah.
really learning much German there, except for the occasional, "Oh, how do you say this? Oh, okay, okay."
Mhm.
But that wasn't really
Yeah.
conversational. And then when I started, when I started at Word Inc., the translation agency,
Mhm.
that was when that was when my German really went to the next level because that was a German speaking environment.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm not sure even actually if my German would have been good enough to do the interview if I hadn't been spending time with my wife and her family. So her
Okay.
brother and his wife speak pretty good English, and for the
Mhm.
first couple years that I was visiting,
Mhm.
they were the people I could speak English with, and then the rest of her family didn't have enough English to get through a conversation, and so there was a lot of interpreting and hand and foot stuff and everything.
Yeah.
But it was the time with her family where I really had to try to speak German and really had to try to understand it. Um, and I wouldn't have had that if she hadn't been there. So her being there meant she was interpreting,
Right.
but her being in my life also meant I was getting the most German exposure that I had at the time. So it's tough to say. If I had just been living in Papenburg with her
Mhm.
family and people like her family and she
Mhm.
wasn't there, then yeah, then my
Yeah.
German really I think would have come along a lot faster.
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
See,
Yeah.
because the reason why I bring that up is because I think your experience is incredibly identical to Lauren when Lauren is hanging
Yeah.
out with Luis's family.
Yeah.
Because when she was in our office in Guatemala, it was an English speaking office. We made everyone speak English. And still to this day, no matter what language people speak, we use English as the common language. We have one
Mhm.
department that relies more on Spanish because they're the graphic designers, so they're not linguists. And so we don't they're learning English and some of them are bilingual, but we let them default to Spanish if we have to because it's very hard to find very talented bilingual designers in South America
Sure,
predominantly.
Mhm.
sure.
So that happens. But my
Yeah, that was
mom, well, go ahead, Lauren.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but my mom came to the United States from Guatemala as an exchange student. And her experience was she stayed with a host family for a year and they spoke no Spanish. And she was the very first American exchange student in a rural town in upstate New York. So she had to,
Yep.
really practice
Yep.
what she had been learning. And she went to a trilingual immersion style school where she was tutored in French and in Spanish because our last name is Barbier through my mother, and it's Belgian roots and Spanish roots and all sorts. So she had Spanish speaking family, and then she learned Spanish, French, and English at school. And so she really, really applied that when she came up to the United States. And it was a very different experience for her. So when I learned Spanish, so I had the experience, and you might know this, and some of our listeners may or may not know this from previous podcasts, that I was not taught Spanish as a child because my mom was an immigrant in the United States, became a nationalized citizen, and wanted her child to be American. So
Mm.
she didn't see the value, and it was the 70s, and this is what they did. So I didn't learn Spanish until I had to learn it when I was immersed in it when I was 11 years old for a year when we moved to Guatemala for a year. And I don't think I would not be at the level of Spanish that I have now if I had not had that opportunity to do that and then continue to study it through school and university when I came back. And then, of course, obviously working in my profession, being able to do it. And it ended up becoming the most important gift in my life was to have that year of struggle. And I think now, like with people that I see, like you, Jake, and with Lauren, who have partners that are native speakers of other languages, and that you're exposed to their families, it's a gift that they're giving you to have that experience, because you're not just living as an expat like many of our friends are in Spain or other countries, but you are actually fully culturally immersed in a family and in a normal basic setting that anybody would grow up in, and you're getting insight that many expats will never have because they are more they're less exposed to native traditions and just the mundane things of life that really truly make up culture.
Yeah. 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 The cultural appreciation,
Yeah.
and appreciation for the diversity of culture within a country, even,
Mm-hmm.
which is still surprising to me as someone
Yeah.
born and raised in a country that you can spend 3 days driving across, and
Hmm.
so you expect, okay, just from sheer size, it makes sense to me that different corners are going to have their different dialects and different traditions,
Right.
and that just makes sense to me. But a country as comparatively small as Germany, just to think that you can cross from one county into another and they speak a different dialect and have completely different
Right.
traditions, like
Mm-hmm.
it's just so it's just so crazy. I mean, so Lauren, are you ready to ditch your interpreter when you're with the family and just go full bore in Spanish, just to
Yeah.
try it out,
Oh no,
just for the benefit?
I've been doing that. We've been together for almost 5 years now. So the first 2 years of our relationship, I was living in Guatemala, and then we moved to Spain together. So I learned well, also when I moved down to Guatemala, I was immersing myself for a full about year, and then COVID hit. So I was isolated as everyone else was in the world for a while, more than a year. And so that kind of I didn't get as many opportunities as I would have if I was able to go out and go to that coffee shop every day, or all
Yeah.
those different experiences.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Spain, which then changing the language again, it's still Spanish, a completely different type of Spanish though. So I had to drop all of the localization that I learned in Guatemala and start picking up what I learned in Spain.
It's not Espanol, it's Espanol.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then on top of that, a year later, we moved to Galicia, which is Gallego, and it's a
Mm,
different dialect of Spanish for Castellano.
Yeah.
So
Totally
I feel
different
like I've
language.
learned three different types of Spanish in
mm,
a short period of time. So I actually was just in Guatemala a month and a half ago. And I went back and my Spanish was much, much better than it was when I was first living there.
Mhm.
And I went back and I was speaking to them in Spanish and they were like, "Oh my gosh." They're like, "You're speaking Spanish." They're like,
Yeah.
"You understand, like we're having a conversation." So it was a really beautiful experience for me because I finally was able to understand the dinner room, the dinner time talking and all of that.
Terrific.
And
Yeah.
I was able to joke back or understand. And of course, I didn't get everything, but I got the majority of it. And it
Yep.
was a game changer. And also, when I was there, I worked for a little bit while I was there, obviously, to take advantage of that time. And I was able to meet some of my colleagues' wives or um, friends, and I was able to speak to them in Spanish because they didn't really know English. And my colleagues were like, wait a second, is this the
Yeah.
same Lauren that was living here that barely knew Spanish? And I was speaking in Spanish, and they were like, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
So gratifying.
so yeah, it's this thing that I feel like it's always within us now. And when
Mhm.
you're put in the pressure, like I speak way more Spanish when I'm not with my boyfriend out
Mhm.
than I am if he's with me, because life is such where you just want to make sure that, okay, they're understanding me fully. Why don't you explain it? I tried. Maybe you explain it. It's a little bit,
Right.
better, and we'll be okay. And also time. I don't want my boyfriend, if we're running an errand and he needs to get back in 45
Mhm.
minutes and I'm sitting there for 15 minutes trying to explain something when he could do it in 5. That, like, those real life moments where I'm like, shit, like, if I have all the time, but I know he doesn't have all the time, so
Mhm.
you probably should take this conversation so we can get it going. Those are those times where
Yeah.
I'm trying to navigate, like, when we have more time, when it's more relaxed, when it's just us going out. I'm definitely speaking more, but if we're on a schedule and it's like, let's go, I definitely default more to him.
I've
Sure.
seen Lauren speak so much more Spanish now so that she's been here in Spain. It's amazing to me and I love it.
Aren't you
I think it's
proud?
great. Oh, I am. I'm completely
Yeah.
proud. And it's great because when her brother comes to visit, he also tries to keep his Spanish up. He
Yeah.
spent his first semester out of high school in South America, and he came back pretty pretty
Pretty
bilingual.
fluent.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
fluent, conversationally fluent. And he's continued to try to learn it. His girlfriend is very interested in learning Spanish as well, and previously married to a Spaniard. So it's also different. So going back to the jara example that Lauren gave for a jug, in Latin America, it's called a pichel.
I know. I learned that
So
this morning too, because Luis was like, "Not here. We're gonna call it a pachel."
yeah, so
And
so
I was like,
that's yeah,
yeah,
that's
Which
the
is closer to
differences.
pitcher too, which
yeah,
is
Exactly,
kind
yeah.
of, yeah,
exactly.
a
So
head
there's a lot of
scratcher.
anglicismos, right? A lot of
Okay,
anglicisms in Latin
okay.
American Spanish and
Hmm.
Castilian. Now that my mother actually has now emigrated from the United States to Spain, she says I've come back to the homeland. Uh, she actually is now paying attention how purist the language is. So in Spain, she says, wow. She goes, yeah, that just sounds so old to her. And I think it's probably reminiscent of Quebecois. So Quebecois sounds like you're speaking from the 15th century French versus the anglicized French in France. So and again, it depends on where you're at, because that's one thing I know that Jake, you and I also were laughing about is that, of course, you've mentioned it a little bit, but in Germany, when you have all these different areas, same thing in Spain, you have all these different areas where people are so close to each other, but then speaking completely
Hmm.
differently or different languages. There's 5 languages in Spain. 5, not 5 versions of Spanish, 5 languages in Spain, and most people don't know that. I didn't know that until I moved here. I knew there was Catalan, and I knew there was Basque, but I had no idea that there was Asturiana and there was Gallego, and then I didn't know that in Andalus, they sound more like they're from the Caribbean because they drop so many consonants, and then Valencia has its own version of Catalan,
Hmm.
and then you have everyone speaks Castellano. So it's crazy to hear these different languages spoken, and we have a neighbor who just speaks to me 100% in Gallego, and luckily, because I can understand a great deal of continental Portuguese, it just sounds it rings in my ear. I can understand it quite a bit, that I understand what the heck she's saying to me, because Otherwise, I wouldn't know what the hell we're talking about. She's
Then what do you respond in?
well, I respond in Castellano
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
I have no recourse. I have nothing else. I am learning words in Gallego like Lauren is, and things like boas dias instead of buenos dias and saída instead of salida. So it's
Yeah.
just, little things like that we're picking up immediately. And when you read signage, that it's all bilingual out here. So you are picking up, but there are words that I'm picking up that are strictly Gallego because it's written like Gallego, but it's pronounced Gallego because the double L, like in Portuguese and Italian, is not pronounced like an eye in Spanish. So it's just the L sound. So when you're picking up those words and then you're speaking them to somebody in Castellano, and then you end up speaking, a mixed or code switching, as we would say
Yeah.
in teaching English.
Yeah.
So you're in between.
I
and
love
so, yeah.
so when I was back in Guatemala, when you say like okay, like in Guatemala they say ba, which is a V-A, ba, and they pronounce it kind of like B-A, so ba.
Ba.
In Spain, it's vale,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So here and in conversation, it's just like you're like vale, okay,
Vale, all day long.
like
Vale,
it's
vale.
just vale, claro. And so when I went over there and people were talking to me in Spanish, I was like vale, and they're like,
Yeah.
they're like, wait, Lauren, no, don't stop saying the Spanish version. Like, you're still Chapin, girl. Like, say ba. So
Yeah,
those little
Chapina.
things like that, you really get used to wherever you're moving to. So I'm curious for you, Jake, now living in Munich or München.
Yeah.
What are some words that you've had
Yeah.
that you've picked up there that maybe are now becoming a little bit more permanent for you, or maybe there's not, maybe it's so universal?
I'm still, yeah, there are a couple I'm still working on. So, I spent 6.5 years in the north. And they've got a few different words for different things up there. The rolls, the hearty breakfast rolls that people eat are Brötchen, and that's kind of the word that you'll learn in like a German class as well. I don't know if you heard that
Brötchen.
word thrown around, Lauren,
Yeah.
with your ex and his family, but that's the word up there. And then in the south, there's Semmel. And so like it's not even close.
Yeah,
It's not even close.
Whoa.
Or the Berliner, the jelly-filled donut is in the south. It's Krapfen. Not even close,
Not even
So
close.
it's really just having to pick. And Bavarian is technically a dialect, but my wife cannot tune into it to save her life. Like
how
if
funny.
we're on the metro and hear Bavarians speaking Bavarian and they're just laying on
Yeah.
that accent, she'll look at me and she's like, I'm out.
Oh,
I'm out. Don't ask me.
Wow.
Don't ask me.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's like the accent and the vocabulary. So yeah, I'm still in that transitional phase of trying to shake some of those words I picked up in the north, or a greeting that is so like Brötchen will, that word will get you through most of the country. Everyone knows what you're saying. But if you say Moin when you greet someone, they know you're from the north. They know it's like, okay, this person's like from northern coastal Germany,
Okay.
maybe Hamburg or in that area, or at least Lower Saxony. So Moin was one that was so it was like Bale, that was like it was so easy to use in the north.
Yeah.
Everyone gets it and they love saying it because it's as distinctly regional as something like y'all in the States. And so people say, they wear it as like a badge of honor, kind of. You're like, yeah, I'm from the north. We're in the north. We say Moin, and so that desire just to fit in and greet people and fit in.
Yep.
In the South is like, exposing me as a phony, as this, fake, this person who's uprooted and, moved somewhere where he still hasn't quite integrated yet. So servus is what they say in the South, and that's what I'm trying to work into my vocabulary.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of examples.
It's hard though. It's very hard to let go of things that became so ingrained. And, that's part of learning a language. You have to understand that there's just the varietals, right? So when people move to the United States and we have an American English influenced by the world, it's not English influenced by one country. It's influenced by everything. And you have so many words within American English that don't belong to our native language, like salsa, right? I always think about that burrito, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the Spanish words. And then you have also people will pronounce things with French accents. And then you have German relish products and whatnot that people will still say German. There was a lot of Germans in Anaheim where I grew up, and we used to call it Anaheim. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Anaheim sounds as Germanic as any
Mhm.
city name I can
Right,
think of. Yeah. Yeah.
right. And so we had a community of Germans, Italians, and Latinos of various, mostly Mexican descent.
Mhm.
But and then an Irish, huge population of Irish. So you had so many different cultures influenced just right there in one town, small Orange County city. And it's interesting to see what it was like linguistically, to compare that to when I was living in upstate New York, when I was living in Arizona, I was living up in the Pacific Northwest, or in rural North Carolina. The differences in what people would say are just really profound, and just the way they would say it. And some of our most favorite expressions definitely come from living in North Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah.
Virginia and North
Any
Carolina are
you
pretty
remember or are
yeah,
willing
like
to
all
share?
stoved up. When you're all stoved up, and
Or
What
you're
does that mean?
it means that you're stiff. You're all stoved up. And I asked people, I said, I tried to be analytical about it. I said, okay, if you're all stoved up, would it mean that you were like a potbelly stove, rigid and stiff? And they all would say, I don't know. Or,
The
of
dead
course,
end. It's
it's
the
the
dead
dead
end.
end. It's the dead end.
Are there living ends? Are there
I
living
I had
beginnings?
a I
Yeah.
had a drop when I moved because when I was a what 7 to 13 is
Yeah.
when I was living in North Carolina.
Formative
So
years.
yeah, so I definitely picked up a Southern accent when I was there, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very, 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 very slightly still with me. More
Yeah,
so if I drink,
very
but
much. If she drinks.
Mhm.
yeah, but I had to drop fixin'
Yeah.
when I moved up to Oregon because
Fixing to do something.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm fixing to
Yeah.
go to the
Yeah.
store or I'm
Yeah.
fixing to let you know what's going on,
Mhm.
and we were watching a show and they said, I'm fixing to go down to the market or something like that. And
Yeah.
my boyfriend was like, "What are they fixing?
Yeah.
Like they're
Yeah.
fixing the market?" And I was like, "No, no." So I had to get into it, but I was like, "Oh, something so I haven't even been
Right.
to the South in so long that those small little things that come up in TV and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's a
Mhm.
fun moment to shine a light. I don't really know where I was going with that, but
Well, that's
anyway.
okay. I've got a
No.
good
No.
segue.
Yeah.
I've got a good
Yeah.
segue because I have some more questions for Jake. I
Yeah.
want to get into now two things that I want to get into. We're going to leave left-handedness for another day, but I want to get into the boxing. So,
Yeah.
boxing. So you competitively boxed, or did it for college or high school, or just because you wanted to go beat people? I don't know what happened there.
Competitive would have been a lot of fun. I didn't. I don't like competition generally, and
Oh.
so I didn't like team sports that
Mhm.
I was sort of made to play growing up.
Mm.
Uh, I didn't like playing to win. I just liked
Mhm.
playing something
Mhm.
that I liked playing. So when I got into boxing, it was just for some fitness and activity. And a high school teacher, my ninth grade biology teacher, was coaching it, and I
Oh.
really liked him. He was hilarious, and we got along great. And so that was just an easy way into it for me. I liked it. I understood it. I don't have
Yeah.
the strategic mind for team sports. You have
Uh-huh.
different moving parts, and
Mhm.
they each, uh, you know, fulfill some unique function, and you have to understand if the ball is over here, who has to be involved in everything. I just
Right.
can't figure that out. It's like the same thing that keeps me from being any kind of decent chess player is like I see different pieces. I know they're supposed to do different things. I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on.
But we don't know.
Boxing, I understand. It's you and it's me,
Yeah.
and and it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
pretty straightforward. So
Right. Right.
so I liked that, and yeah, it was some exercise I could get into, and
Yeah.
did that through high school and coached it in college, and that was a lot of fun too.
Wow.
Taking over the
Now
boxing club and coaching it there. Yeah.
I'm amazed, and I it takes a lot to surprise me, but I am really dumbfounded right now that that a school district would sign off for insurance purposes for a boxing team, because I mean, wrestling And
Look
football
at
is
American
violent.
football, though.
Football, American football is
You're just
very
slamming your heads
violent. You're
together.
slamming, but you have protective gear. American or soccer or football, right? For over here, American soccer, you've got more contact going on. You could have head injuries because there's no padding and whatnot. If you're not raised on the East Coast, you don't get on the West Coast, although it's becoming more and more popular in the Pacific Northwest to have field hockey and lacrosse. But it wasn't something that was really optional during the 70s and 80s when I went to high school. But well, actually, I went to high school in the 80s. But as far as boxing, though, I mean, that's just straight up, let's just get the kids in there and we're going to teach them how to punch the crap out of each other.
I coached it at university.
Okay.
I didn't try. I didn't even bother making a push to start a club at the high school I ended up
Yeah.
teaching at. I taught English, literature, and composition, and creative writing, and everything.
Totally different.
My leadership role there was the literary magazine, and so I
Okay.
traded the gloves for the pen there. But
Wow.
at the university, it was just it was like a club that existed, and then
Okay.
I and some friends inherited. And we had some headgear, we had some gloves,
I was
and
gonna
Yeah.
I
say.
kind of knew what I was doing and was
That
able
sounds
to
great.
lead a class, and that was just it's just great fun.
And so, do you still box or?
No, unfortunately, I had a meniscus injury in my knee that
Oh,
I just never really
Oh.
recovered from to the extent that I could comfortably
yeah.
box well again.
Yeah.
I could hit a heavy bag for a few minutes if I need to,
Mm-hmm.
but all the power, all the speed and agility
Right.
in any kind of stand-up combat sport is coming from your legs
Yeah,
and from
exactly.
keeping your knees bent and hopping
Mm-hmm.
around and keeping that
Mhm.
low center of
Mm-hmm.
gravity. And so
Mm-hmm.
so that was just too much for my poor little knee. So I've
Um,
found other things to occupy my time.
well, what do you like
Yeah.
to do now? Do you cycle?
I cycled for a while. I rode for a while at home. I had
Mm-hmm.
the little rowing machine
Oh,
and the
yeah.
stationary
Mm.
bike, and so I did some of that and got my knee strength up to a point where I could do like some squats and lunges. And so
Oh,
that's
good.
just I just keep it pretty simple now. It's just like what can I do in my living
Mhm.
room
Right,
on
right.
the floor, without any equipment. Yeah.
I get what you're saying though, because I loved playing tennis and I played in school. And for me, what I loved about it is that you're competing against the one person across the net, but most of it is that you're competing to become better like they are. So you always want to play somebody that's stronger and better than you because that's the only way you're going to learn. If
Yeah.
you're consistently winning, you're really not learning. You need to constantly get your ass handed to you on the court to improve. And so I always liked that challenge. And I think it kind of set me up for a whole pattern in life of understanding that I was going to have things handed to me in a way that I didn't want to and to persevere
Yeah.
and to be resilient. And I think combat sport and solo sports are incredibly focused on resiliency because it's you. It's you're throwing yourself out there. But I come from a long line of family members who are group sport players, including Lauren, basketball, soccer. My husband, same thing, coached and played both, and my son, the exact same sports. And his brothers, Michael's brothers, my husband's brothers, played football and in high school and in college. And and his dad played a champion winning Purdue team in college basketball. So always people around sports, including my mom. She played soccer and she played basketball. So I was like the only one playing the lone sport out there. But then again, I'm the one out there singing solos too. So
Yeah.
I like that. And I love choral groups, but I love to perform and sing solos because it's fun. And it's not like an ego thing where like I want the attention. It's fun to get out there and
Yeah.
entertain people. Like
I've seen you with a microphone. I
you
know
have.
how
Yeah,
much fun
I'm
you have.
I
sure.
Yeah.
do. I have
Yeah.
so much fun, and I encourage people to come along and do it, and I think that's the same thing when you're playing solo sports or where you're trying to tell people, okay, rappelling's fun or tennis is fun or golf is fun or, boxing or anything that you're doing in that manner, it's fun. Hiking. Now we do a lot of walking and hiking out here in Galicia. So all of that to me, it's a fun thing to do. And I'm really hoping once Michael and I do our Camino out here that we get blessed to not be with a lot of people while we're walking and
Mm-hmm.
have it more be where we note up and learn about people at the albergues that we'll be staying at and the social time. But the actual walk itself is one of those things that it's for the lonely. It's for the people who want to reset, to just get out and be in nature and commune with that and not, you're leaving all the other stuff behind. And everything that all three of us on this call do is involved with other people. So to have that moment where you can just be alone, I think that's also the attraction for me for solo sports, is you don't have to do that, and there's so many times that I've just played tennis against a wall, just hitting the ball against the wall, and just enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I love that then the place you're doing it becomes this arena for you to struggle with yourself and to
Yes.
grow out of that
Yeah.
struggle.
Mhm.
A dear friend of mine is a Taekwondo master and
Oh.
coaches, and what she tells the students are, they get on the mat, and so she says the mat won't lie to you and it won't lie for you. Like when
That's
you're
very good.
here in this space, you're just going to find out how well prepared you are. That's it. You're
Yeah.
going to
Yep.
see what you can do, and you're going to
Mhm.
see what you can't do yet.
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
going to be so painfully clear what you
Yeah.
can't do. And that's true in
Yep.
sports of any kind. It's true in any challenging endeavor, and it's true as an adult learning a foreign language.
Exactly.
Where
I was going to link it to that.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, where the only way to grow is the way of failure and shame
Exactly.
and
Yep.
Exactly.
embarrassment
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
humiliation. It's
Mhm.
it's it's the two cappuccinos in paper.
It is.
It's what is para lavar? What was that?
Yes.
Like
Exactly.
that's it. But it's the only way you grow. So that's the hope we can take in the discomfort. In these
Right.
uncomfortable times or in this embarrassment. The hope that we can find there is that, oh, this is sign, this is evidence that I am learning. This is evidence that
Exactly.
Mhm.
I'm stretching myself and
Mhm.
growing, and
Mhm.
my horizon is growing wider,
Yeah.
and I'm meeting it and finding a new horizon. That's the idea.
Well, and that's a perfect link to my next question, because you are now storyteller and you've been doing this through this podcast too. I can just hear the way
Mhm.
that you express yourself. It's a wonderful way to listen. I truly enjoy it. So tell me about your company. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you're doing professionally.
Told and sold. Yeah, it uses the elements of storytelling to create holistic communication approaches for a company, for an entrepreneur, for a startup, for anyone at all. So it takes the 5 elements of storytelling, breaks them down into their 3 characteristics. So you have 15 elements then to work with, and in different situations, okay, when I'm putting a website together, if I'm
Mhm.
creating a one pager or a flyer, if I'm pitching for investors, if I'm doing a presentation somewhere, which elements of the
Mhm.
story can I use to achieve which effects? So it combines, yeah, like I said, the marketing and communication needs
Mhm. Mhm.
of anyone in the business of call to action, of getting
Mhm.
someone to do something, with my love of storytelling. Yeah.
So do you like this most of all of everything that you've done professionally?
Um, that's a good question because it's still taking shape before me. So like every time I've got the product or the service nailed down, I have some new insight where I see some different
Yeah.
branch that can grow off of this tree. It's the most rewarding so far. It's the most
Okay.
satisfying, the most rewarding because it's this great opportunity um, that Christina Volka, my boss from Wording, from the
Mhm.
translation agency, has given me.
Mhm.
Where like
Mhm.
I started reading up on story marketing. There's a
Mhm.
guy, Donald Miller, in the States who's written a lot about this. There's a guy, Alexander Christiani, here in Germany, who's written a lot about this. I came
Mhm.
up with my own approach, and I pitched it to Christina, and I said, here's something I really believe in. Here's something I
Mm-hmm.
can give myself 100% to, that I really want to make work, and I think it could be great for the company as well, to expand our offering to
Mm-hmm.
clients.
Mm-hmm.
And she has given me the great gift of letting me develop this. So it's this terrific professional playground
That's
to
great.
test and play with and experiment and have fun and success with, all my favorite things that I get to choose to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
A
So
lot
you're,
of
oh, go ahead, Lauren.
I just want to say a lot of people I think are most comfortable with being around stories being told or telling stories. So it immediately kind of takes the pressure off of things. How you explained it, it's very comforting
Yeah.
already. Just hearing the way that you.
That's the idea. The idea is to take like the guesswork out of marketing and communication. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you know there's a message that you're trying to get out there, and this message is supposed to achieve a certain result, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
call to action, whether it's like and subscribe, whether it's buy my product or service, whether it's invest in this startup, or in my nonprofit, or whatever that
Mm-hmm.
is,
Mm-hmm.
um, storytelling is a great through line,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and it takes the guesswork out of, okay, what do I say? Well, what do I say this time? Well, we had our
Right.
marketing campaign last time, but that was its own thing. So what, are we starting from zero now? No,
Mm-hmm.
like when you
Mm-hmm.
have what I call the origin story, this foundational story of the use of your product or service, then you're
Mm-hmm.
starting at the 80 or 90 yard line, and you
Yeah.
just have to carry it that one little bit. You just adjust the key details most relevant for this application, and then
Wow, I
and
love
then you're
that.
there, and it's compelling and it's persuasive. Yeah.
Right.
So you're still working then for the translation company, but you're not working. So it's your company under her umbrella. So she's sort of like your initial uh, VC.
It's right now it's a brand of wording. That's what we're calling it, because we
Okay.
haven't yet made it its own entity. We haven't
Okay.
Oh.
yet made it its own. In Germany, it's the GmbH, which is sort of like an LLC.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
we haven't hit that step yet, so right now it's just a brand of wording. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. I
so.
gotcha. I gotcha.
Mhm.
No, I think it's great. So of course, we'll have links in the podcast for everyone who's interested in learning more about it. I love again the title of it is told and sold. I think also the thing that people are not maybe aware of is that everyone has a story to tell,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but it's how you develop that and recognize that people like you, Jake, that need to help and assist them put it together in a way that it makes sense. And it goes back to the initial conversation we were having here about networking. So it's not much different than that either, in the sense that once you know what your worth is, once you understand what your value is, what it is that you are uniquely offering, or maybe not even uniquely offering, but just your spin on that product. That I think is what people tend to get afraid of. They tend to back away from putting themselves out there like we were talking about, but also they don't think that they are clever or that why would they want to listen to me? I know that that's been something, even just in teaching, I find that students are reluctant to speak in front of class because they're afraid that they'll be made fun of by their classmates because, kids are brutal, but
Mhm.
also because they don't think that they have anything of value to share. And 9 times out of 10, we're going to say, no, you're wrong. And that 1 time out of 10 is because they just weren't prepared. So I think it's incredibly important, the work you're doing. And I think it's a really interesting approach for a translation company to add this as another key service to what they are doing, because we all have diverse services within our own language services companies, and we all are in the same industry, but we approach it differently as we go about. And I love when somebody comes up with something unique like this, because
Yeah.
I don't know of many other people that are doing anything similar. And I really wish you all the success, and I hope it becomes so big and so huge, because
Yeah.
you're great at it. And I think that the world needs to know this. And I think you have something that will truly blossom and is, as you continue to develop it, and it's something that could be trademarked. Honestly, I think it's a great approach, but it depends on, again, here I am like being the businesswoman going, oh, look, you can do this, 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 this. But it depends on what you want to do with it too. I mean, yeah.
I hope it reaches all those heights. I certainly have big plans for it, absolutely, and I hope it grows as big as my passion for storytelling is,
Yeah.
and passion for communication. I mean, it's what got me interested in languages in the first place. I mean,
Mhm.
back to elementary school and through high school, a pretty consistent desire to become bilingual somehow,
Mhm.
someday. Because there's just something about this business of relating to people, of understanding them, of meeting them
Yeah,
at their level. And the best way to meet them at their level and understand them is to speak their language.
exactly.
Yep.
And so I see
Exactly.
that as one expression, and then this storytelling is just to help people communicate clearly. The very thing
Right.
that you were talking about, Melissa, where to clearly communicate the unique benefit of your product or service, so the
Mhm.
people who really need that and can benefit most from it are going to find it and
Mm.
understand it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. No, and exactly that clear communication, and for people that again are listening or are not in the language services industry, everything we do in translation or interpreting is convey meaning. That's the essence of our job, is to convey meaning. So we have to make sure that we're able to do that in multiple languages so that the meaning is what is delivered, even if the wording is not the same. And it shouldn't be. It should never be literal, right? So I think
Hmm.
that there's plenty of room to again take all of these wonderful stories I've been listening to today with Jake and transform them and transcreate them into a moment where it's uniquely applicable for living in Germany, or applicable for living in
Mhm.
Spain, or living in the United States, or living in, insert country here. That's really true communication as far as I'm concerned. And what you're doing also is a human connection, which we need more of in this world now. So to
Yeah.
get a little bit on my my United Nations bandwagon here, I think it's important that we have people that are telling stories like you, that are encouraging others to tell their stories and show their worth, and bring that so that there's more connectivity amongst all of us, because we definitely need that in this day and age with everything that is going on out there. It's a busy world right now in politics. So I love when we can have human interest people like yourself that are really pushing that story and pushing that story to be told. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Um,
Thanks
well,
for giving me the opportunity to.
yeah, no, anytime, Jake, anytime,
Yeah.
you're welcome back on this podcast. I hope that we get to talk with you again. Maybe we'll do a different subject matter. Maybe we'll have a couple of other people on here with
Follow up.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is this my second episode? Because I know I got to ask a question on an episode of something recorded at ALC.
Yes,
Is that coming
actually,
out this
Oh.
season?
yes, parts of that is coming out this season. So we did get that. The audio didn't turn out as great as we wanted to.
Okay, yeah.
So we didn't
Gotcha,
really
gotcha,
put
gotcha.
it out. It was a complicated recording moment. So that's
Mhm.
why that hadn't been released. We're still trying to manipulate it and see if we can get it to go, but it wasn't something that we can control. But yes, you
Understood.
were in the
Yeah.
audience, and you did ask some great questions. So we might just put the transcript out there. I mean, if anything, that might just be what gets put out onto the
Terrific.
website. But
Well,
but no, yeah, anytime.
we have one closing question that we've been asking other
Yes.
people that have immigrated across the world. A little cliche, but I think most people like hearing the answers and the diversity of how everyone feels in different countries. So, what is your most comforting thing of living in Germany, and maybe what is the most uncomfortable thing
The
about
thing you
living in Germany?
hate.
Or another way, what is your best and worst things about
Yeah,
Germany?
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, but like comfort and discomfort's a great way to get at it, because if it's comfortable, it's probably in line with what you already know and have experienced. If it's uncomfortable, then it's just sort of outside what you've
Mhm,
Yes.
already
mhm.
experienced, and that's not the same necessarily as good or bad.
True.
Um, um, comfortable, if I think of what is comforting about my life or how I think of my life in Germany, it starts with my wife. She's the reason I'm here,
Aw.
and I couldn't be more grateful to have her in my life, and to have experienced Germany through knowing her. There's comfort in knowing too that Germans as a people, I think, are serious about um, sustainability, and
Mm-hmm.
not just in the environmental sense, but they're serious about the efforts they can make today, so individuals and families and communities in the country continue to be comfortable and prosperous down the line. And so I know that they're serious about that. They're interested in quality. They're interested in quality that lasts. They're interested in uh, legislation that is going to pay off in the
Mhm.
near and
Mm-hmm.
distant future for generations to come. They sometimes get in their own way, and the bureaucracy and infighting among parties can sometimes
Yeah.
be a stumbling block to that. But they are serious about it. When people ask me what Germans are like, one of the stories that comes to mind was when I was teaching. I was really teachers are broke all the time, and so
Yeah.
like if you put a couple of bucks down for like a decent stainless steel travel coffee mug, it's like a big deal. It's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mhm.
I was teaching, and I show my German students I have this great stainless steel travel coffee mug, and it's fantastic, and I can only recommend it. And they said, "Oh yeah, great, looks really good. How long have you had it?" And I said, "Oh, I've had it for a week."
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh yeah, well, you don't really know until after a year."
Ah,
And I thought, okay, that's how Germans are thinking about things.
okay.
Yeah, and so that's just comforting to know that I have committed to living in a country that wants to take its own
Nice.
future seriously.
Nice.
When I think of discomfort or being uncomfortable,
Mhm.
hmm, mm, mm,
Or
mm.
even just the least appreciative thing you can think of about living there.
Um, it can be. This has to be similar to the States, where it can be frustrating to see how intolerant Germans are of each other,
Ah, yeah.
and how the
Interesting. Yeah.
Good one.
Germans, even within Bavaria, which is its own state, Germany
Mhm.
has
Mhm.
16 states. It doesn't have 1,000, it has 16.
Mhm.
Within Bavaria, depending on the corner of the state you're in, people will tell you whether you're really in Bavaria or not,
Right.
Ooh.
or whether the dialect and tradition from this corner of the state can
Wow.
even be called Bavarian, or
Mm.
is it more Frankish, I think would be the English term for sort of northern Bavaria and that region. They say, no, this is the
Mhm.
true Bavaria.
Mhm.
Southern Bavaria says, no, we're the true Bavaria. It's like, oh, give me a break. Not to
Wow.
mention, just showing you within one state, but then like between South and North,
Yeah.
it's the difference between Catholicism and Protestant
Yeah.
and Lutheran traditions, and
Right.
it's and it,
True.
which lead to their own entirely different ways of life, and but then out of that different dialects, and uh, so it's just seeing how just kind of intolerant and how icky Germans can feel about other Germans, and with this sort of disapproving kind of head shaking. I don't know what they're up to
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
That's disappointing. Yeah,
We experienced that here as well, Spain.
Oh
yeah,
my gosh,
yeah.
yeah.
Specifically, where we live in Galicia, it's kind of
Mhm.
othered. And
Okay.
this
Completely.
area, if you're from really anywhere else in Spain, they think of this area of like the country folk, that they don't know
The
better.
sticks. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They
So,
do. They do.
um,
The
very
the
interesting.
Andalusians get it a little bit worse than we do, but the Gallegos, oh my gosh, they
Um,
they get it bad. And also to Lauren's point, if you live in the north of Galicia, you are speaking Castellano and you don't
mhm.
want to speak Gallego. But where we live in the south, on the border of Portugal, definitely everyone is speaking Gallego. and they're proud
Specifically
of it.
where Melissa lives
Yeah,
too.
specifically where I live, out in the there's 4 areas of Galicia, and I'm in the Ourense area. And Ourense, very much they speak Gallego, and you're listening to it, and you're thinking, are they speaking Portuguese or Italian? You're not sure, and it's just got that little sing-songy sound to it. And it's great because I grew up in Southern California where the Spanish spoken was mostly Mexican and it was very sing-songy. So I'm like, this is cool. I got my and being musical, I'm just like, okay, I can just adapt my ear to that. So I'm just gonna
It
go along
is-
with it.
Sway into the beat.
Yeah,
Sway to the beat and start
It
speaking
is
like they do.
very rhythmic.
It is very
The way
rhythmic.
that they speak Gallego and Orense.
Yeah. It's just like Boas dias. And you're like, oh, okay.
Boas festas.
Yeah, Boas festas. Yeah.
I want to
So-
like move my shoulders.
Yeah,
and,
it's
you know,
very physical.
Yeah, it is. It's very physical. And they all, it's funny because they all look the same. It's just this very distinct look here of
There's a
of
very
people.
specific Gallego look.
Look.
If you're not
So
from here,
funny.
that you instantly will start recognizing.
You will, because they're Celts. So the Celtic nations from the north all the way down to the top of Portugal, they're all Celtic people. So they play bagpipes here. There's
Lots of bagpipes.
Wow.
in
I
Spain.
didn't
So
know that.
It's a very interesting area.
Yeah, it's
but
very, very
going
interesting.
to your point of the frustration, I think
Yeah.
we feel the same way because all of us leaving the U.S., we deal with it every day there, and it's just something that you wish didn't happen elsewhere
Yeah.
to the extreme that I feel like it happens in some countries, but yeah, it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think this is why having people like us that are out in the world who are trying to get others to perhaps see things differently, even though we know that it's a never-ending battle, because some people are just never going to want to. And that's part of the thing of being an expat, is especially being an American expat, having to accept that people don't want to change.
And I'm going to be challenging the millennial here to stop using the word expat and use immigrant.
Yeah, I know.
Because we're technically
I have to use
immigrants.
immigrant.
Sure.
Yes, yeah, and we are immigrants. We
Yeah.
are immigrants of Spain, and that's true. So, although her boyfriend is no longer an immigrant, her boyfriend just got a citizenship.
He just got approved for citizenship here. So
Terrific,
he's very,
terrific.
very excited.
And talk about perceptions of other people. And this is a perfect jumping point on this. I'm going to shout out to Luis because he's native Guatemalan, never lived in the United States, can't get to the United States because he's a single male that doesn't own property, without a wife and child. So they won't give him a visitor's visa to go to the United States because they think
Yeah,
he's
I've tried.
a flight risk
We've
for
tried
not going back to Guatemala.
3 times to get visitors visas just to show them where I'm from, and they've denied it every time.
Uh-huh.
And incredibly frustrating.
Very, very frustrating.
Yeah.
So he comes to Spain, and we Americans in Spain, we have to wait 10 years to get citizenship. If we up to 5 years, we get our residency card. So we're on the pathway. We're just a couple years out of that. But it's 10 years for most people in the EU to get citizenship if they are not married like you to someone, or they're just, coming over as a immigrant. And it was 2 years for Luis because he's from Guatemala, which used to be part of the Kingdom of Spain. And so they recognize him as their own, and they don't discriminate because he's from Guatemala. They don't other him. They don't think of him as third world culture. They think, you're another Spanish speaker that was from Spanish heritage. Come on home. And off he goes. And so now he can go to the United States with a Spanish passport.
This, believe it or not, was the fastest path for him to get to the U.S.
Oh my gosh.
Not that he even wants to really go, but I'm trying to
to
persuade him and be like, no, trust me, Oregon's very beautiful. You should check it out. But
who wouldn't want to go after, being rejected that way?
Yeah.
I totally get that. Of like,
Oh,
no, we don't want
totally.
you.
Yeah.
He actually wants to go live in Norway, which I think that's funny too, because he's never seen snow.
No.
And I'm like,
he's
okay,
experienced
that's not
snow
gonna work.
one time, but he's not even played in it once. And I'm like, you need to play in the snow before you go live in the snow. Like,
Or just the cold,
Right.
generally.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Yeah.
those temperatures.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. It's pretty funny. Anyway, well, I'm just going to wrap it up here, everyone. This has been, we could go on for hours. I know. We're going to have you back at another time, Jake, because
Yeah.
there's more
Anytime.
conversations to be had. This is
Anytime.
great. Thank you. Thank you. So this has been another exciting episode of Lauren, take it away.
Translate this.
Yes.